Welcome back to Rocket Talk Mini. This episode will be focused on The Last of Us Part 2. There will be spoilers in this after a few minutes, so if you have not played the game and you don't want to be spoiled, turn away. Since Johnny and Connor don't have a PS4, they'll not be joining me today, but I do have some very special guests. I have my buddies Michael, Zach, and Ryan all joining us. So Michael, why don't you go first? Just kind of tell us a little about yourself, and then Zach and Ryan can also do the same as well.
Okay, my name is Michael Cripe. I am currently a reporter for Escapist magazine. I was previously over at Only SP as an editor. I'm ready to talk about this game. There's a lot to talk about.
My name is Zachary Perez. I am a college student. I just recently took up photography. I love video games. And I am also really ready to talk about this game because I have a lot to say.
And I'm Ryan Novalski. I'm actually out of work at the moment. And I hate doing these, like I used to say when I had to do these in school. But I'm excited to talk about The Last of Us.
Yeah, so first question then would be, when did you guys all first play the original The Last of Us Part 1? And then where would you guys also rank those in terms of your best/favorite video games? For me, I bought it day one. I remember seeing like the first trailer they had at before it was the Game Awards. I can't remember what it was called, but like at the equivalent of like what the Game Awards are now, they showed it off and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I went and I bought it day one. I was mad that my GameStop didn't have a midnight release. But I've said it before on the podcast, The Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time. It's up there with Portal 2, Sonic Adventure 2, and Crash Team Racing as like those are like my four main ones. So what about you guys? When did you first play it?
I actually wasn't too impressed by any of the early footage I saw of the first game. I don't know why, but I was a big Uncharted fan, and everything to me just looked like, in retrospect, this seems ridiculous, but to me it just seemed like it was a small step above some of the stuff I was seeing in Uncharted. I actually had a friend buy the game for me in kind of a funny interaction where I didn't want it, but he was like, "Oh, you got to try it. You got to try it." And I was like, "Okay." So I played it and I beat it, and now it's it's probably my top 10 favorite games ever, I'd say. I got it maybe, I don't know, a couple weeks out from release, but it's I think going in with low expectations really helped my perception of the game too. But it's a masterpiece. It was such a step up, especially at that time.
It's funny that Michael says that like he wasn't like entirely impressed by its initial release. Because I remember seeing it when they first debuted it. I think it was at E3 2012, and I remember them showing that first trailer in the hotel with they were fighting the hunters, and then how like realistic it looked for given what it was, given that it is a video game, given the fact that the AI was responsive to oh, he has a gun, oh, you're putting his gun at me, please don't shoot me, like all that stuff to me was like insane, because I feel like at that time that really hadn't been done, and if it had been done, like it wasn't very persistent. And then I did not end up getting the game at day one. I actually had a buddy who did get it before I did, and I went over there and I played it a little bit, and it was like, okay, now I for sure have to get it. Like I was following it through its release, but my parents at the time were like, oh, I don't know if we really want you to play rated M games.
Oh yeah, because Zach's a little baby.
Yeah. But yeah, my family was not about it at first. And if I was playing rated M games, it was like, just like not very like COD. Like they didn't care about COD because it was just violence. But stuff that was like out of their realm, stuff they didn't know about, they were like, yeah, I don't know about this. But they eventually came around, and I ended up getting it when we got our PS4 and the PS4 remastered came out. I just no-lifed it. Like I no-life a lot of my favorite games, and right now I have to say it's like probably like in my top 3 behind Kingdom Hearts. I'm a huge Kingdom Hearts fan, specifically Kingdom Hearts 2, and then I'm a big Jak and Daxter fan with knowing Naughty Dog. Like it's probably behind those two series. So it's my number 3. At least this game is.
I don't think I played it on launch day. I definitely remember the trailer, but I had a 360 at the time. I think I actually played it on Luke's recommendation. I think it came up in conversation. Have you ever played this? And I said no. And then Luke was just like, get it. Get the remastered, and I did. I hadn't played Naughty Dog games in a long time. Like probably not since Jack X because I skipped PS3. But I think it's probably top 5 in my ever-changing top 5. That's like the one consistency. It was just something cool at the time, and I forget how old I was when it came out, but anything with zombies, stuff like that was cool. But I really liked the human aspect of it too.
Yeah, because that's always the
All
thing.
I'd played at that point was like Left 4 Dead and stuff like that, where it's just see zombies.
Yeah, because that was also one thing I think that made the game so good was that it was like there's a lot of tired tropes in terms of the setting, the plot, all that, but it was the way that it was done. Because yeah, like we've seen this same plot a million times before, but it was done so well that that's what made that first game so good. And so, moving on then, as we go on to the discussion of the second game, we'll start with a little bit more broad, spoiler-free discussion for a few more minutes if someone still wants to kind of hear things before we dive deep into a lot more spoiler stuff. So, what's a spoiler-free thought, a brief thought on the game as a whole for you guys? Whoever wants to go first.
Okay. In general, I'm really positive on the game. I have a couple things that I don't like. Some pacing issues, I think, is something universally people have problems with for one reason or another. But in general, I really enjoyed my time with the game. I didn't see a lot of the negativity before I went in. And I really tried to avoid commercials and trailers and things as well. So I really went in blind, and through my time, I just loved everything I saw. It felt like a roller coaster. If I had to say some of the biggest strengths, I think the gameplay obviously is more than a few steps above than the first game. The story I like is more involved. Like we were kind of saying, like the first game's story is very straightforward. Something we've seen. It's not too complex, but yeah, it's. I hesitate to say masterpiece. It's not a 10 out of 10. I don't think, but it's an amazing game, and it's something I wish everyone would give a shot.
It's crazy because like this game is insanely good. Like this game is graphics wise, combat wise, story wise, not so much. But like at the same time, I say that, and I know that like me individually, like I cried several times playing this game. I felt very emotional playing this game. This game is a very, it really does manage to, hold you in and really do make you feel engrossed. And with the fact that like what we know about the characters who were in this game from the previous game, it's just like you still have those emotions for those characters. I like remember I was texting my girlfriend and I was like, I'm crying for like maybe the 4th time again because of this game. And it's just I don't know, it's just like, while I don't agree with some of the things that they did in the story, I definitely still think that it's a story worth playing through. But at the end of the day, like Michael said, it's not perfect. I'm not gonna be able to give it to call it a masterpiece, but it's definitely still a great game, and I do implore anyone to who has been hesitant to check it out to still check it out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like in everything that I think was not necessarily a weakness, but the lesser part. Like in the first game, the gameplay took a backseat. It was all about the story, it was all about the characters. The gameplay was manageable, but it was pretty bare bones survival horror stuff. And just like the little things they expanded on it with the ability to jump and go prone and adding suppressors and all the other stuff that they did just to expand it, and just made the gameplay so much more fun. Like I really had a lot of fun in this one, and with the AI even better than what they even were in the first game. What's crazy is, so I was streaming parts of the first game on our Twitch before the game came out, and then the game came out and I stopped playing the first game, but I went back to it yesterday and just seeing the difference in graphics, because when The Last of Us Remastered came out, that was probably the best or second best looking PS4 game out at the time. And like playing that after playing the sequel, it's just like, oh my gosh, this game looks so bad compared to this now. Like with the lighting, with the character models, the sound design, everything they improved on a lot in the sequel. And yeah, and we'll get into it more too. Same thing with like the story. Like there's moments in the story with the story and characters that I don't fully agree with. I don't fully like. I can see why they did some of those things there. But in terms of the gameplay and like the technical side of things, this game is incredible.
Yeah, I think small additions went a long way. Going prone, just, checking the corners. Usually when I play games, I don't do that. But in The Last of Us, I gotta make sure I check this. Can I lift this chair? I'm gonna do it. Just small stuff, and like going prone, going behind a wall. Oh, hey, look, there's a safe. Now where's the code, or what's gonna give me the hint for the code? Even stuff like that was really good.
Yeah.
I think the gameplay was still very solid. The story was the part I didn't agree with, but I still think you should play it. I would highly recommend you play both before you just don't look at Twitter's opinion of it, because Twitter and like social media can be so vile, and a lot of them have issues with, they have like LGBT characters, and people are always going to have their opinions on that, even if the world's changing, and too bad. And it's not like they were thrown in. It's not like it was the Disney version of inclusion, where, like in Avengers, in Endgame, where they had the gay couple in therapy for maybe like 5 seconds.
Or the minor character kiss in Star Wars.
Cap goes, yeah, okay, and then they move on. Or how when Beauty and the Beast came out, they were like, oh yeah, LeFou's gay.
Yeah. Yeah, so out of all the new additions to the gameplay, what would your guys' favorite be? Mine, honestly, would be the suppressor for you can have on the pistol. That thing was so nice. There were so many times where I would try to get stealth kills with the suppressor, and sneak up and stuff like that. But I would move so slow that they'd find a body, like, oh look, Jeff's dead, and I was like, ah, crap. But the suppressor, that addition alone, like, just made it so much more fun to be stealth.
I think what I enjoyed most was like going through the first game. I felt like I wasn't encouraged to use all of the different mechanics and things that I was given. It just felt like I got like my revolver and my bow, and I'm good. I don't need anything else. But with this, everything had its own strengths and weaknesses. So I think that in general, that balancing was so enjoyable for me. I felt like I always had something I could use for different advantages and things like that. But if I had to pinpoint a specific thing, I really liked Ellie's mines that she could put down. That's not something I'd normally use in a game, but like coupling that with like bottles or anything like that to like get the any enemies to walk over to a mine, it's just so satisfying for me. That and going prone felt so natural too.
Yeah, there was one time where one of the newer enemy types with the Shambler that I'd put a pipe down, the bomb down, and then I'd throw the bottle so they'd come after it so I could knock out most of the health right away because they were annoying to deal with.
Those Shamblers are rough.
Yeah, bloater juniors aren't fun. I did like the suppressor though. That was cool. And it did make you kind of think, because in the first game, when suppressors weren't a thing, I got bottles of alcohol, I got cloths, whatever. I'm just gonna make a bunch of health kits. But now it adds a little bit of thought to it. And same with the mines. It's like I can make a pipe bomb, I could make the shrapnel thing, and do the same thing, and I'm being dumb. Or do I want to make like one of these, one health kit, or do I want 2 health kits, 1 mine? So I think it adds a little bit of, not to say that the game's a strategy, but it adds a little bit of strategy.
Yeah, you got to figure out with your supplies, which do you want?
Yeah, and sometimes you pick the wrong ones and you have to deal with it, and I think that's actually part of the fun, the challenge of the game is, you look at a building, you go, oh, this is a thin building, maybe it's narrow, maybe I want bombs, and then it's a whole different, it's just a passage to something else, and now you're like, okay, I made the wrong items, let's see what we can do with this. So I think that was cool.
I saw a lot of people. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I have to really give it to Naughty Dog because, like, I am like a massive survival horror fan. I'm like just a massive horror fan in general, but like, I like survival horror games. Like, I'm currently playing through the Dead Space series. But it's when you play survival horror games, like, all the environments are like super closed in. It's like a way to like help you feel claustrophobic. It makes things more stressful. I think that with Naughty Dog like making like these really open environments for combat and encounters, it brought like a whole new level of stress because it's just like they throw all these enemies at you and they throw all these different enemy types at you, and it's just, you know, you have to manage, you know, you have to look in all directions, you have to like, you know, plan out where you're gonna lure someone because someone else could be like right there, and that could take a while to do because you have to lure them far away, and you have to try to do that without alerting everyone else. It's definitely a different type of stress, and I thought that playing this game, I was like, I've never experienced like stress like this, never like let alone like horror like this, especially if you're like in an like think about like there is a section in here where there is a broken down building and it's very massive and it's, you know, there's different levels to it, and I thought that that was really clever to do because you have all these different enemy types in here and you have to figure out how to take them all out like if you want to use like stealthily, but like it's just it's just a whole different stress, and I thought that that was really cool and something different to witness, you know, as a survival horror fan. So
I something I thought when I was playing through the game, that I saw a lot of others compare as well after I was done, is it's a lot like Metal Gear Solid 5's gameplay, if you guys have ever touched that. It's not quite as refined. Yeah, that game has its own problems, but the gameplay is just so solid. I think it's really, it feels fantastic to me, and this is almost on that level. It's not quite as dynamic, and you don't have quite as many gameplay mechanics and features at your disposal to take out enemies, but I always felt like every encounter could be approached from so many different ways. And in the first game, you know, you approach a situation and it typically, at least for me, you know, you kind of always want to go in trying to stealth things, and then if you can't manage that, you just take them out loud. But with this, I always felt like I could start an encounter in stealth, and if I got caught, I could try to go back into stealth or take out a couple people while I'm out. But it's just so dynamic, and I can't give Naughty Dog enough props for putting such a focus on gameplay, because it really worked out. I think it's such a blast.
For sure. But I think now it's time to move on to the spoiler discussion. So we're going to get into the big spoiler that leaked in a second. So if you don't want spoilers, leave now and come back after you play the game, or when you just want to be spoiled, I guess. But the first big shocking moment that happens, you know, is obviously the death of Joel. And it's probably the biggest point of contention with the angry fans that are giving the game 0 out of 10s on Metacritic. And what's so funny about the Joel death is that, like, some of the stuff that people expected, they're like, oh, Joel should have went at a hero. Oh, I can't believe they killed off Joel, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I mean, Joel's not a good person. Like, he was not going to go. You knew that Joel or Ellie, one of those two, was probably going to go out in this game not peaceful. They're not going to be on their deathbed at 72 and be able to say goodbye to the other as they fade off and just into their sleep. Like Joel, I was thinking about this. There's a few moments in the first game that really just prove like that. He made enemies. A good one was when you find out Tess is infected. She's like, "We're shitty people, Joel. We always have been." And it's like, you just knew that at some point, okay, this is gonna. It's probably going to happen. I was surprised with how quick it was. I didn't expect it 2 hours in the game. But you knew too, from if you paid attention to any of the marketing, when they're like, oh, this is a game about revenge, you knew that once that was coming out, I was like, okay, it's going to be Joel or Dina, maybe Tommy if it's late enough in the game and he's in the story more. But when it was 2 hours in, it's like, okay, it's Joel, because that's what's going to get the big emotional stuff out of you. Speaking of emotional, so I didn't cry when he died. I got a little misty eyed. I was like, oh, but when you go to his house after and you get his watch, oof, that got me.
I don't want to talk about that. That hurt. I mean, the fact that they kill him so brutally, and I guess from their point of view it's justified, but obviously you've been attached to these characters and just watching them get bludgeoned to death really was reminiscent, not emotionally, but of in GTA 5, spoilers for GTA 5 if you're one of the 3 people on the planet that hasn't played it, and Johnny gets his head absolutely just bashed in by Trevor, it was just kind of like, oh, I'm like, hey, I remember you from the first game. But with Joel, it's like, you built this whole thing and he becomes kind of a father figure for Ellie. But what Luke said is true based on the marketing. I knew it was going to happen at some point for Ellie's character development or development almost in a way. If you're one of those angry, I want to leave a negative number on Metacritic types, then I guess that's great for you. I hope it made you feel good. But I was thinking, maybe we're gonna have the intro sequence, and maybe we're gonna get to a point where we're gonna think, oh, we're comfortable, it's fine, and then they were gonna do it. I didn't think they were just like, boom, story, boom, we're gonna kill Joel. So it was pretty jarring. I was upset. Tears.
I just feel like
I'm not ashamed.
don't be. It's rough.
And then watch, man. It's, oof.
God, the watch part just oof.
Everything in that house
broke me.
Especially if you like beat the game and go back through. There's so many like little references and things that I missed going back through. It's tough. I don't know. It's just I get people being upset that Joel died, but that is the point. You're supposed to be angry about it. And to me, it never didn't make sense. It always made perfect sense to me. That it would be weirder if Joel got some big dramatic death. It wouldn't feel like the world of The Last of Us,
Yeah, if he went out like saving Ellie, like Ellie was about to get shot by Abby or one of the WLF, and then Joel jumps it. Like, no, that it's
a brutal world. It's totally brutal.
It was never gonna happen that way.
And unforgiving, yeah. And and I know people have a lot of problems with Joel giving his name out, and I'm pretty sure Tommy's the one who first tells Abby that their names are Tommy and Joel. And either way, Joel must have changed over the years.
Well, yeah, that's one that people are like, oh, Joel never let his guard down. But yeah, if you read the notes that are left along in those first couple hours, as any of the characters you're playing as, there's stuff about how the people in Jackson are trying to live like as normal life as possible. They're not like the WLF where they just shoot you when they see someone. Like they'll try to do it where, oh, okay, they'll try to talk first, and they'll kind of have their guard up, but they're not fully like hand on holster. And then on top of that too, Abby is roughly Ellie's age. So like I don't know if it could have been one too that just because Ellie and Jesse and Dina, all them, like they're all in their like late teens, early 20s, and so he was like, okay, it's like Ellie's age. What could they do? And and then yeah, sure. After that, like you actually knew each other, he knew something was up. But another one too that just shows that, like Joel knew was going to happen too is he was like, okay, what big speech do you have planned for this? Because Joel knew that like he was probably going to die either getting infected or killed by someone.
Yeah, he had it coming, and he so clearly knew that. I mean, he did. I can't think of a better reason to kill someone than they doomed humanity. I understand why he did it, but yeah, the dude had it coming for sure.
And the thing with Joel and like him letting his guard down is just like you have to realize like it's been 4 years since the event of the first game, and for all we know, like they've been in Jackson all those 4 years, or they somewhere close to it. Like Joel doesn't have a reason to be as like, oh, I'm like to be as like as guarded as he was in the beginning of the first game, right? Like now he has this surrogate daughter where it's like, okay, now I have to let my guard down because now I have to be a father figure, and I'm not gonna treat my daughter like a piece of shit. I'm not gonna be so level-headed with my daughter. So it's like it makes sense for like why he was that way, as much as it makes sense as like why he was gonna die the way he did. Like everyone says like, oh, it should have been something else. It's like, but what else did you really want them to do? Because it's like as we said before, like you doomed humanity, saving this one girl. You doomed humanity, and there were survivors in that hospital that potentially saw you witness murder all their friends, murder their family, murder their, whatever. But like, and like we said, like Joel's not a good person, especially for that. Like Joel in his own right is a good person. Joel in general is not a good person. So it doesn't make sense when people say, oh, he should have gone out a hero, or he should have gone that. Like, no, I mean, like, to be really honest with you, like, Joel doesn't. There is no better death for Joel than this. Because you're right. Because Luke is right. Like there is like he knew he was either gonna die, getting killed by somebody, or getting infected. And don't get me wrong. Like I love Joel. Joel is a wonderful character.
He's great.
I love him and Ellie. As like equally. But like we also like we have to like admit to ourselves like as people who have played this game, as people who are invested in the story, like Joel is technically a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's another good one too. I had that line when I was playing the first game last night. I don't know. You just get to Pittsburgh, and Ellie's like, "How did you know about the ambush?" He's like, "I've been on both sides." And he's like, "Did you kill any of them?" And he just was like, It's just like, well, and the whole end of the first game, like that is always a fun one to talk about because it's like the like Abby and all those who are involved that were Fireflies have every right to be mad at Joel because Ellie could have been the cure, but also at the same time, I don't know if I really trust the Fireflies when able to find a cure. The Fireflies were so incompetent in that first game. I don't know why Abby's father, who was the surgeon that was going to operate on Ellie, like I don't know if he would be able to actually find the cure. But like there still was that chance, and now we don't have that chance, and who knows how many other doctors of Abby's father we had that could have done it. But yeah, it's frustrating that a main character dies, but also
There was no way he wasn't going.
Yeah, and like you needed that for the story, and then the whole point was him dying makes you mad. Like I remember after Joel died, I texted Zach and I was just like, I can't wait to kill Abby, like because I was like, okay, I knew this was coming, but I can't wait to kill Abby.
I felt that same way. Where I was like,
oh yeah, I don't think there's a single person
anymore. It's mine.
who said who wouldn't feel that way, and I don't think if you were to say like, yeah, I was just gonna see what happened, I think you are a liar.
Yeah, you just wouldn't have been as emotionally connected to the first game if you'd be like, oh, okay, let's see how this goes. Yeah, and so it sets up Ellie's story. So she'll go, to Seattle, and and her and Dina start hunting for Abby, and so over those 3 days, I think one of the other things that we didn't bring up in the gameplay that I really like about this one over the first is how they change up the environmental puzzles. There's there's a few things that repeat, but in the first game, there's so many times where it's just like, oh, here's another generator, and there's a few at the start of the game, but it wasn't like all the time. And then it was like, oh, there's another pallet, time across this water because Ellie can't swim.
I would like to comment that
like
for some reason,
throw rope over obvious wall.
Yeah.
Or move thing against thing to step on thing.
But no, for some reason, like
So
the
like really just ABC. Yes, move object, step on object, get over other object.
What were you gonna say, Zach?
No, I was gonna say like the generator thing for me, like this time around, like sounded like super, like not sounded, it was kind of complicated for me, where it was like I don't know why I'm like restarting doing this press triangle to start the generator and then keep it going. Like for some reason that was harder for me to do this time than it was the last time, and it just makes me feel dumb because I'm pretty sure no one else had that problem.
Yeah, I did not know. The time I did was the one time it's out of gas. I was like, what, did I mess up? And then like, oh no, it's out of gas. I was like, oh, okay.
There were some anxiety-inducing instances.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh man, there's the jumps. They jumped up the jump scares a lot in this game. There was a lot of times where I was like, oh shit.
Well, even like with the generator stuff, there's a couple times like the aquarium later where you had to, or just using like wires and ropes. I'm like, where do I throw this?
Yeah, there was one time I got stuck.
It's not always obvious, but I think that's cool.
Yeah, I got stuck on one for a bit, and I was like, what in the world? And then you figure it's like, oh, okay. But yeah, and then before we get to the midway point, another thing that I really loved is the inclusion of the guitar. And just like how that Pearl Jam song kind of ties everything together. But when you find that music store and you play Take On Me for Dina, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This game is amazing. That was so nice.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts about the guitar. Like, going through the first time, I was just like, oh, this is a fun little mini game, and they put a lot of work into this. Like, this is like you're actually playing guitar chords. And yeah, that Take On Me moment was so beautiful. But Ellie being able to play the guitar through the game just felt like a fun little mini game to me, and I was excited to get on YouTube and see people playing like Nothing Else Matters, like Metallica songs and all these things.
Yeah, there's so much stuff on there you can find. I know Mark Hoppus from Blink-182, he was live streaming the game and he did Damn It. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff you can find that people just like, because yeah, it's decently robust enough that you can play like real songs on it. And yeah, yeah, it's a nice little mini game. Like the few times you pick it up, it was a nice just like escapism moment that you were able to do.
But
I
like
think Naughty Dog was to use the gamepad for something besides an app or a menu.
Yeah, seriously.
That shows you how long they've been working on this game.
Yeah, because it's like the other game I can really think of that like that uses the touch. Well, it's only the Sony games that do it. Like Dreams does some stuff with it, but like one of the last games I can think of that like really used it in like a decent way was Infamous Second Son. How you'd use it to like open the prisoner cages and some other just like little stuff like that. Like it
right.
But yeah, this one it was nice because like, okay, let me play the guitar, and it was fun just to see what songs they had on there and how they kept playing that Pearl Jam song that made you feel things more the further you got in the game.
Yeah, and something with Pearl Jam songs or like things where they give Eddie Vedder creative control with themes of isolation, just really ramp up the sadness, but also like ramp up the I want to do this. Like if you've seen Into the Wild, I think Eddie Vedder basically composed the entire soundtrack to that movie, which is a great movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it. There's no excuse to not watch it. It's such a great movie. But it had a very similar vibe to the songs throughout Into the Wild.
So here's the crazy thing actually about that song that I wanted to bring up. I found this out on the Kind of Funny Gaming spoiler cast they had on it. So a year after the game came out, they did that Last of Us One Night Live. It was a Jeff Keighley project that he had. So like, Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson and then all the main characters, they would go and they reenacted some of the big scenes from the game, like Sarah's death and when Ellie is going to her surgery and all that. But there was an epilogue that was only for that thing that there's no footage of, or there's very few, and it's not like it's very hard to find online. But in it, Joel plays a song, and they were looking for something to do, and so he plays that Pearl Jam song. He's like, whatever, no one's gonna record it, we can get away with it. And so then they decided they wanted to actually put that in to the game, and that actually is what that opening scene is when Joel first plays it for Ellie.
I did not pick up on that in the game at all. Somehow.
Actually, I didn't either. But also, I would also like to shout out Naughty Dog for reminding us how much of a gimmick the DualShock 4 is because of the motion control for the flashlight.
Oh yeah, dude! Can't forget the flashlight. You gotta shake it. Gotta get your flashlight batteries back.
Yeah, dude, I was shout out Heavy Rain in Detroit when Luke said use of the gamepad, but then I remembered he said good use of the gamepad.
Jason!
And I was like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't mention this. My son! Where's my son?
Jason! God, what a meme that game is.
Swipe a gamepad to Jason. Is like that's like the PS3 press F to pay respects, but not as universally known.
I played that game when it was free for PlayStation Plus, and I only made it past that part because I was like, I don't know if I could do a whole game of Jason.
And then you went, wow, this game's actually pretty boring.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then you stopped. That's what I did. I was like, maybe Detroit will be better, and I'm like,
Detroit was not better. Detroit was not better. The game. I like watching playthroughs of those kinds of games, but as a player, I just do it.
Yeah. But then the midway point of the game, where you get to your place you're hanging out with after you run into Jesse and Tommy, and first Jesse gets boinked pretty hard, and we'll talk about that in a second. But then we get the switch to Abby, and I don't know about you guys, but I was not expecting that, and then I was not expecting it to be where you then play as Abby for the second half of the game until the final chapter. Did you guys see that coming at all?
Oh, not at all. I was like, oh, this is just another half an hour segment until I started picking up supplements for her and upgrades for her, and I was like, oh no, this is a whole new playthrough. Yeah, that really that shocked me, and I was like, at the same time, like a little mad about it as well, but then like quickly got over it. She's like, okay, I get it. I see what you're doing.
Yeah, they're trying to say, hey, I know you hate her, but look at her side of the story. And I was just like, okay, whatever. But
I think when that Seattle day one title card comes up, I think it's just such a like, yep, we're really doing this, you know? Because I think he starts her section when she's a kid, and you get to see her whole backstory there and why she hates Joel. But like,
yeah, because it's all that stuff in Salt Lake when Joel and Ellie get to Salt Lake and they find Ellie. It's like it's all the way up to that. It's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, you. Oh, that's her dad. Oh, that's nice. Who's he?
but they really commit. they commit for half the game, just about. It's something.
You know, and what's crazy is they kept that such a secret. I remember too, you know, I have all those avatars they gave you for pre-ordering the game or for whatever it was, and you get and like you get all of them, and so it has Lev and Yara and Joel and Tommy, but for Abby it says mysterious woman. Like they did not want you to know that you like who Abby was at all until you played the game.
I kind of saw the switch coming. I don't think in the fact that it was going to be half the game, but I figured maybe we're going to play as Abby in some, like, you know, between the line segments just to connect the dots a little bit. I still thought, you know, we're going to be Ellie and Dean, or Ellie and Jesse, or Ellie and, you know, Tommy, whatever. Since you do have that brief segment where you play as her in the beginning.
Yeah, when you play as her when you meet Joel.
Yeah, and when I first did, I was like, oh, friends. And I was so terribly wrong. But I respect what they did with it. I can't say I'm, like, the biggest fan. I think it would have been cooler if you were, like, day one Ellie, you know. Like, if you did day one, day two, day three.
Yeah, because that definitely is one. That, and then just also all of the flashbacks, as great as they are to like expand the story, it was one that like at times it just was weird for the pacing, because it'd be like stress, like, oh, I just killed Owen and Mel as Abby, I mean as Ellie, and okay, I'm back now, okay, looks like we're just gonna give up, and then oh crap, Jesse's dead, and like she's about to, like, she might be killing me soon, and then it's like, oh look, here is a young Abby with her dad sabing a zebra, or like, oh, this stress thing just happened. Oh, here I am seeing Abby and Owen jump off of a Ferris wheel, and it's like it broke up the pace a little bit. And I was like, oh, really? But yeah, it was definitely one that caught me off guard. Even if like there were like hints that it was coming, but like especially once you opened up her thing and saw, oh shit, she has like a full list of stuff you can upgrade to, and then you got training manuals. I was like, oh, she has a full story.
Yeah, the pacing really took a nosedive for me when I saw those same things, like the gameplay. Like, it's like, oh, she's got all of her own training manuals, and you have to collect all of these materials again. And she's got her own different weapons that you have to upgrade. I was like, okay, this kind of sucks. At least for me.
Well, and then also, it wasn't a character like that. People like, I didn't like her at all. I was just like,
yeah.
Like even after that first, like even those first couple scenes you see of like that. Oh, her dad was the surgeon that was going to do surgery on Ellie. And it's like, oh, Joel killed him. It's like, okay, who cares? Like, sorry that your dad's dead. And I get you wanted to kill Joel, but like, that doesn't make me like you.
Yo, I'll go back and play part 1 just to blast her dad in the face.
Oh, what's funny is in part 1, since they didn't have this part done, is actually a black guy. And then they had to change it so it can be.
Oh, wait, was it?
Yeah, yeah, because that's one that people didn't realize either. It's yeah, if you go back and look at it, or it could be a white person, but just because they're not a main character, their character models look like trash. But like, it looks like it's a black guy in the first one.
I feel like I've seen people complain about that, but I never actually like went back and checked.
That's it. He was like such a minor character though that like if they change him, like no one's gonna. That's one that people just notice for having a keen eye, but like that's so minor.
Well, I mean, because like at that point you're just like, oh, he's just a doctor I have to kill. Yeah,
exactly. And sure, knowing that it's a daughter of who I'm gonna play as a second game, maybe you want to kill them, but I still probably would have. But
I think crazy about us hating Abby so much is that I don't know how much of an unpopular opinion this is, or maybe it's not at all. Her playthrough is actually a lot more fun than Ellie.
Oh yeah, no, I was about to ask that. That was my next question was, which journey do you like more? Because yeah, I liked Abby's a lot more. I think that her journey and I think her story was better too. Even if I like don't fully like her as much as I like Ellie, or don't like her cast of characters as much as the ones that like that Ellie deals with, because like I didn't care. Like I didn't care for Mel. Like Mel sucked. I was glad when she died. Like most of the other
It's
WLF,
horrible.
like
Mel and Owen
The only
are just
WLF I liked
garbage.
was Manny.
yeah, I didn't like Manny at first, and I started to like him, and then he dies too. I was like, oh okay, but like yeah, like I was
At
mixed
least you
on
got
Owen.
time to get attached.
Yeah,
To the
yeah.
story, because with the other
I
story,
thought-
I'm like, oh, friend, oh, they're dead.
I'm with y'all on Manny, but I felt like fucking Mel.
Mel sucked. I hated Mel. When Mel died, when you killed Mel, when you kill Mel as Ellie, and then you go back and you interact with Mel, it's like I'm glad that Ellie kills you.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
Dude, I was so mad. I was like, you're supposed to be dead. Why are you back? What do I have to deal with more of you?
I was also glad when Owen died, and I felt bad for him like at one point, and then like the next scene, I was like, never mind, I hate this dude. And
Well,
then
I mean,
I really hated Abby again after the world's most awkward sex scene TM,
Oh yeah, that was.
where I was like, why'd you put this in the game? Did you put this in the game because you knew people were going to be mad about gay people, so you put the most awkward, like 15 seconds of dry humping that were so abrupt in the middle of the game?
In the middle of the game, just like out of the blue, it's just like, oh okay.
that's literally how you.
I'm
know
gonna
you're at the
choke
middle
you,
of the game.
but also it was weird.
Yeah.
It went from violence to sex like 2
Well,
seconds.
what's crazy too? It was right after the part where you meet Lev and Yara. So it's like it's right after you see a girl's arm get broken by a hammer, which was like that was one of the first things that they showed with
They
the
were
game.
like, hey, wait out here, I have something to do.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like, so you just have this
picture him
traumatic
sitting
event.
awkwardly in the stands somewhere. And do you think we should help? What are those sounds?
God,
I don't know.
But what are you guys' thoughts on it? Like we did a little bit of it, but what are you guys' thoughts then on the supporting cast of characters? So we get an expansion of Tommy a little more, and we have Jesse and Dina on Ellie's side, and then it's mainly Manny, Mel, and Owen on Abby's. Plus, there's a few of the other ones that were at the lodge when Joel dies. But yeah, I liked Manny. I really like Jesse. Dina got annoying at times, but I enjoyed Dina. I, for the most part, enjoyed Owen. Hated Mel, but
I think we can let's just
yeah, Mel sucked. But man, we kind of talked about it too. Just the way that Manny and Jesse just die. Like I get that they're kind of like when Joel died, they're just kind of saying, "Hey, no one's safe except for Tommy." But like. It was just surprising because it's like, oh, like I like this character, and I get that Tess die. Like Bill is the only one that you interact with in the first game, besides Tommy, that doesn't die. But it's like you at least were able to build up to seeing like you had like a goodbye scene with Tess. You have the whole like crazy thing of oh shit, Sam is infected. But this one, it's just like Jesse and Manny.
I don't want to recall. That was painful. That was the most painful moment of the first game for me.
Yeah, true.
Because you're like, oh, look, other people. Oh, this is great. We're all in this together. And then you're like,
Nope.
oh, no. Oh, no.
But yeah, just like
I actually stopped playing for like a day or two when that
yeah,
happened. 'cause
it's
I
pretty
really
rough.
liked
That
being
part
Charlie.
still gets me a lot.
Yeah.
But like,
And I was like, oh, it's this kind of game. Like
But,
with
like-
Tess, I was a little attached, and I was like, whatever. With those two, I was like, this is.
yeah.
And then 2 was like, oh, you thought that was.
It just was like surprising because they're just like, oh hey, look, oh there's commotion. Let's run outside. Oh, Jesse's dead, or oh this sniper guy here, let's pin him down. Oh look, man, he's just dead, and just like it's so quick. Like you have like no time to react.
I really like that.
Yeah, I was just starting to like Jesse when they shoot him in the face.
I
I was
I
like, I like
honestly
Jesse. Like, oh, it's cool he came out all this way. That's cool. That's our buddy Jesse. Like, what a good dude. Even though we're like dating his ex.
I really appreciated that it felt more brutal. I felt like a lot of the first game, had a lot of it's a lot more sad. It's there's a lot more sorrow going on, but this is just it's such The Last of Us Part 2 is such an aggressive game. So, I wouldn't say I see a lot of people saying that we don't get any time to mourn these characters, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, just Joel, for example, I feel like I don't know if he could have gotten a better send off within. I know some people have problems with the pacing of the flashbacks, but those moments with him are beautiful to me, and that's the one time the game got me to cry, is that last flashback toward the end of the game.
Oh man.
That's rough. It's so sad.
Yeah, let's tangent off of that part for a second. I know Greg Miller said the same on Kind of Funny Gaming, that when they finally show that scene from E3, the dance when they kiss for the first time, and like you see Ellie like get the fuck away from me, and you're just like, oh no, that's the last thing that Ellie ever said to him, and it was just like, oh, that broke my heart. And then you see that where they at least like had that one final scene together. And it's just like, ooh, this might even be worse now.
It's just so heartbreaking. It just feels like, they're robbed of that last chance to make amends and for Ellie to forgive him. Man, I hate it. I love it, but I hate it.
It was well done in a way that makes you not like it, but you can appreciate the way they wrote it. Not mad, I thought it was, because you're like, oh, it'll be fine. Things will be fine. This is fine. And it's obviously not fine.
No, never.
And I
It's
think
never
that really
fine.
gets to the theme of the game. Yeah, really the theme of the game is revenge is a vicious cycle.
And it costs you a lot, which we can
Yeah,
get
I
much
think
more we get to the
people are-
ending. But also, how did Tommy survive? I know that there's like a reasonable explanation that like the way the bullet hits him, that it only like damaged his eye or whatever. But like the dude got shot in the head and he's just like, oh, I have some walking issues and I'm blind in one eye. But it's just like I thought Tommy was dead too, obviously, until they seemed, I was like, what? Like that was probably the most shocking thing in the game, more than Jesse and Manny getting shot right away and like you have no time to react. It's that Tommy had the same, and then 15 minutes later you see him again. It's like, oh, he's not dead.
Oh, recovered from that bullet wound in your skull, I see. He got some, did Akira Toriyama write that part? Because that's a lot of plot
Yeah,
armor.
he had some anime plot armor.
Yes, he did. He had some anime main character. That is some, Naruto level plot armor, because I still question it.
What are you gonna say, Zach?
That should be the DLC. How did
I
Tommy
just
live?
want to like go back a little bit and why like we're still on this topic before I move on of the supporting cast. I gotta say, like, a lot of these main characters I don't care about, and this is probably about to be a very heated thing to say. The only character I feel like I really do care about supporting wise is actually Lev.
Oh yeah, I can't believe we didn't talk
Oh,
about
Lev's
Lev.
the
I love
best.
Lev.
Yeah, and it's just like she's so like the whole thing with her and Abby on like while they're like trying to get to the hospital and they have to do that whole
He, you mean? Lev, not Yara.
oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, my bad. But while he is like, trying to comfort Abby through the whole heights thing, while they're trying to get to the hospital, like that was to me like it's not nowhere near close, but it is like the most reminiscent relationship of like what Joe and Ellie had, and I thought that was really cool, and I didn't think that like any of the supporting cast was able to handle that up until that point.
Yeah, for sure. Because I remember you telling me that too. That was one thing that definitely was missing in this game. Is like as strong of a relationship that Manny and Abby had, and as like likable as Jesse could be, and the interactions with Dina and all that, it was missing that same relationship, that like banter you had with like you didn't have that same reaction with Joel and Ellie that you had with anyone else besides Lev and Abby. And yeah, Lev was an incredible
Lev
character.
And Yara were like, they were just, sorry to cut you off, they were just they were just so great. Like, it's just like the innocence of kids. Like, they kind of knew they were in a cult. And, obviously Abby has her views on the scars, or, as Lev will tell you every time Sarah fights. I think she kind of exposes him to the fact that it's kind of BS, because in the scene where you're going up the skyscraper, or in the not the scene rather, but the just that segment, Lev was like, well, we can't use things from the old world, and Abby's like, okay, but don't your soldiers have guns?
And like they're using like an elevator.
He says, well, yeah, but that's an exception. And she's like, isn't that convenient? But she doesn't. She still feels bad for him because she's a kid in it, and she's not a character you like. But at that point, I did start to sympathize, and I admittedly, I kind of liked her a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
The way
Yeah.
they treat the WLF, I was like, these people will kill kids. Who cares? But they're so innocent, and like
What?
you can see the humanity there, and I think that was honestly my favorite part of the game was going around with those two.
Yeah. Well, because that's the whole thing that like
horrible hospital,
that's the whole
the
thing that kind
chambers
of
and all that mess.
pushed that pushed Abby to realize, yeah, like, because like I brought it up earlier, like the WLF will just like shoot someone on sight, like it doesn't matter who you are. Oh, you're an enemy, bam. Where like, and she took time to talk to someone and realized, oh yeah, hey, this is just a person too. And that's when like her and Owen both remembered, hey, we're Fireflies at heart, and like while we would still probably be enemies with them, we can at least sympathize because they're also people. And where WLF, they're just like, let's just eradicate all the scars.
Especially because they portray the scars so,
viciously.
I don't know if animalistic is the right word, but like you watch them hang, like several people, you come into a room full of just hanging dead bodies, like tortured, flayed, hung, and you're like, whoa. But then like you still realize that these are only kids, and this is just, you don't have a choice of what you're born into. And the scene that really got me in that part was Lev. Just like Lev's so sweet. Like just I love Lev, man. And just going back when he ends up like killing his mom.
Yeah,
That
man.
Because he just believed. He's like, maybe she'll break out of the cult. And as soon as he did that, I said, this is going to be a bad idea. And that's honestly when I thought he would be dead.
Yeah, I'm glad that he survived.
But the way they did it was so jarring, but also
Yeah. And then moving on with the main characters, I can't remember which one we mentioned it, but we talked about like just the whole thing with Lev, and then going to the hospital. When you go to the hospital and then you go down to Ground Zero and you fight the Rat King. Oh boy. How horrific. So I remember I heard you could like hear him when trying to open the doors, and I'm just like, what is that? And if you can actually do it where if you put your listen mode on, you can see a big blob. I was just like, what the hell is this thing? I'm not looking forward to this. And then when you do actually go and escape and you see it, like there's not too many things in either of the first two games that like get me squeamish or just make me get all the chills and all that. But that part, even just like talking about it right now, I'm just like, oh boy, like that thing.
the whole bottom of that hospital was gross.
That thing was disgusting.
And
But I mean, it's like thinking about like those are people that have been infected for 20, 40 years, just chilling in a hospital in Seattle.
Well, what the outbreak is 2013.
Yeah, and then the first game's
something by the time
yeah, the first game's 20 years later, and then we're what, 5 years after the first game. So yeah, we're like 25 years post outbreak.
Feels like 2030.
Yeah, it's like 2037. Pat Mahomes' contract with the Chiefs just ran out.
I think something that this game does so much better than the first game and better than most games I've played is the world building. Like, and we kind of touched on that when we're talking about the Seraphites and everything. But like, after you go up there with Lev and you're walking across those like cranes across the buildings, and then you go down and you fight the Rat King. Like, I really felt like I was in this world that made sense. Like, it at least was trying to make sense. Like, it made sense to me at least that the Rat King was down there and he was this amalgamation of different infected types, and because it's been down there for like 25 years, and that fight is just so brutal, but it felt so Resident Evil, but it made sense too, which I think is what was so important about it. It still felt like, to me, it was kind of a little too boss fighty. Like, it felt like really video gamey.
It was like the first time you fight a bloater in the first game.
Yeah,
because that's the same thing too, where it's like it's very much oh look, here's a boss arena.
Yeah, oh for sure. And like Abby's even like, all right, I guess I'm gonna fight you. It's like, okay, this is a boss fight through and through. But I appreciate at least that like they went out of their way to make sure that it made sense why that thing would be there.
For sure. Did not like that though.
No.
I mean,
It's
like,
terrifying.
as a horror fan, that thing to me was super sick. Like, I loved fighting it. I say I loved fighting it, but like I hated the fact that like it could one shot you. But I mean, at the same time, like that makes sense. Like, I hate that it does that, but it does make sense. But yeah, as someone who's like, hell yeah to those kind of things, that was an absolute hell yeah for me. Like, I love that thing. I would absolutely play that boss fight again. To be honest.
Yeah, he sucks though. But also, man, we haven't talked about too. I hate stalkers so much. Like shamblers and bloaters are annoying because they're just big and take so much stuff. But stalkers are the worst enemy type out of all the infected because it's like runners. Oh, I have to make sure that I don't, they don't see me. Clickers, I got to make sure that I don't get medical location. But it's like stalkers, like are just such a pain in the ass to take care of. I even had some of the settings changed, so I like auto lock on to people and had like no sway just so I could get some nice headshots. And like I still had trouble killing the stalkers because they just were that much of a pain in the ass.
I never minded him that much in the Last of Us 1. So when you first encounter him here, I was like, okay, cool, stalkers, but they're so different. They're so like sneaky, and they hide around corners, and they'll like look at you.
Well, and they don't.
They knew where you were, but you didn't know where they were.
Yeah, because you can't hear them with your hearing mode.
They remind me a lot of the hunters from Left 4 Dead, but 10 times more anxiety-inducing. Because at least with the hunters in Left 4 Dead, I was like, you're gonna be at the top of something, or you're going to be at the end of a hallway. With Stalker, you never got to feel safe, but at the same time, I think sometimes they overdid it with the Stalkers, and it added a lot of artificial difficulty instead of actual challenge. It's like, all right, here's a room with some clickers and runners, whatever.
It did feel
by
like...
the way, do you think you're safe over here? There's a Stalker here, and he's going to screech, and everything's going to run at you.
It did feel like they just kept throwing them at you, the stalkers. Like I'd be like, okay, I took out a bunch of them, and then you'd move 3 feet, and there's a ton more.
I can't remember which character it was. There was at one point, where like
on its head.
Yeah, there's
like, come on.
There's at one point where you fight it, and it's like you're in a room full of stalkers. There's like 4 or 5 stalkers that come after you back to back to back, and it's just like go away. Like luckily I was in a spot where I could. There was a tight space and then a door, and I put down. I think it was Ellie, because I think I put down a bomb at the door, and then they were all coming in from the tight space, so I was able to just go boom, boom, with my shotgun and take them out that way. But those
the stalkers in the hotel segment with Abby when you're looking for the gas mask for Lev was brutal, because you would go through like a small space, and in the first one I'm like, all right, we're moving through a small space, we get to breathe. The second one, I'm like, we're moving in a small space, what terrifying thing is going to punch through the wall and grab me right now, and then I'm going to have to fight 6 of them? And that answer was usually stalkers.
Yeah, for sure.
But at least you could punch them. At least it wasn't like, clickers where it's like, oh, they touched you, you're dead.
Yeah, that is good at least.
But I think that was like fair for balancing. It was like, well, I can punch you, I can't punch a clicker, but I can punch you in the face and create some separation, and then see what I can do.
Yeah, before we move on to like the ending segment, another one I talked about is kind of just the whole like thoughts on the violence of the game. Like there's at some points where this game just feels like they were violent just to be violent. Like some of those death animations are just like, hey, how gruesome can we be? And I know that's been a point of contention as well, on top of Joel's death and the fact that there's LGBT characters in the story. But what are your guys' thoughts then on just the violence of the game?
So personally, and like maybe it's because like I've been playing violent video games for so long now that maybe I'm just desensitized to it in a way. But like at the same time, it's like I remember being like 13 years old and Call of Duty had us like cracking the head of a dog, like to get him off of us. Like since back then, we've seen in different types of media, on shows, in other games, people being on fire. We've seen gruesome deaths before. Like, and I feel like anything in this game that you've seen it before. And if you haven't seen it before, it's definitely somewhere else that definitely did not get the amount of hate that this game is getting for it. And I feel like because this game is getting so much hate, it was just another point of, hey, let's just shit on it because it's The Last of Us 2. But realistically, like I said, like anything that you've seen here, it's in a different game. It's on a TV show. It's in a movie. Like
yeah, it's like the dog thing. In Call of Duty, there's so many times where you just dog gets you, snap their neck, and I remember I think it was last year when they revealed there was dogs in the game, and that like sometimes you got to kill them to survive. And people were like, whoa, wait, what? There's dogs and you can kill them? And it's just like, I mean,
I'll kill 100 people, but I'm not going to touch a dog.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, go play Call of Duty. It's like, yeah, sure. Like, I made the joke that's like, oh, I should try to do a playthrough where I don't kill the dogs. But it's like, that's just not, like, really possible in this, like, because, like, of how the scent mechanic works for them and all. Like, you have to kill the dogs. And just like how you have to kill...
Literally run from.
Yeah.
That's it.
Like you... Options. Like, there's a couple times in Call of Duty, like, in I'll Gill It Up and One Shot, One Kill... There's, I can't remember which part of the level, but there's one point where you walk by a dog that, like, Macmillan's like, you know, don't kill that dog. And if you do, then you, like, hear, like, a howl, and then, like, a bunch of dogs come after you because it's like, hey, don't do this. But, like, then there's other times where you, like, so, okay, there's a couple dogs you might get away from. But, like, sometimes you just, it just happens, and people are, oh, like, yeah, they're appalled at things that have been in video games.
Got the dogs on Dome in World at War.
Yeah, true.
It has to happen because you can't go anywhere else.
Also,
Once you hear Mr. Russian guy come over the radio and yell about dogs, you're gonna have to make a choice that you are more.
The savages sent dogs.
Yep, and it's.
yeah,
I felt bad because I was playing it and my dog was in the room and he like heard it and I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah,
Like he would look at me and like, I don't want to do this either.
Go ahead, Zach.
Because they're all good boys.
I was gonna say, like, off the top of my head, I could definitely think of like 5 other games. Off the top of my head, I'm sure there are more. Like 5 other games that are more violent than this. Like Prototype 1 and 2 come to mind immediately, and
I forgot
Silent
about
Hill
those games.
probably.
Yeah, for sure.
Any game with a zombie dog.
Yeah, like Verrucht, and it's like, oh,
Even like Resident Evil 0, because I know that was way more controversial, obviously, because that was 98 maybe. Tank controls were still acceptable, so definitely
gross.
in the 90s.
But man,
that was controversial, and so playing up the violence in Israel. Like,
also it's a violent world. Like humanity's been wiped out by a pandemic. Most humanity has been wiped out by a thing that turns people into like fungus zombies. So it's like, yeah, like it's gonna be.
It reminded me of the meme with the girl where it's like the hunting segment from Left 4 Dead 1, and it's like the little bunny, and she's like, oh my god, and then it just boop, and it gets hit with the.
Yeah, you're gonna say something, Michael?
Yeah, I think the dogs were almost too much for me. Like I can't remember the last time I was bothered by violence in a video game, but something about the dogs just felt so real. Like I didn't have a problem if I was like using a silencer or like my bow to take out a dog. I think it was just so far away. But there were a couple instances where like I had an axe or something and a dog was charging just on the dogs and like really them, and you can like hear they're crying, and it's just like it really made me wince. Other than that, I felt like it was the violence was totally appropriate, and if anything, I feel like the dog thing's appropriate too. It's almost too real for me.
Yeah, like when you kill Alice, like when you have to like the game kills Alice for you. Yeah. Oh, that's such
even the minor dogs have names.
Yeah, that's such a thing that like that's such a minor thing the game did that added so much to it as well. It's like even like, oh, I go and I shoot some random WLF and he's just like Teddy. Like it's supposed to make you feel
cute names and you're like,
it does make you feel bad. It's like, oh, I just killed some random person. Like that was his friend. But yeah, it's but oh, man, speaking of violence,
on a weirdly related level too, because I'm like, I have a dog.
Yeah. But speaking of violence, what about the stupid?
Obviously, something.
But what about the clowns that are, speaking of violence, that are threatening the developers and actors of the game? It's just like, I get it. Like when we haven't even touched on the ending, I get it. Like Joel's death, playing as Abby. If you're a bigot, having LGBT themes, like you're mad or whatever. But like being
actually not only that, but like developed LGBT.
Yeah, like having a transgender man play a transgender man character with Lev, like that's a huge thing. And like, yeah, sure, maybe using his dead name isn't the best because like for a trans person, as someone who's not trans, I can't speak for trans people, but I know like just how much them getting dead named hurts them and they hate it so much. But like having that. And it's what the one that was crazy to me is I watched a little bit of a video of some random YouTuber I never heard of, but it was a recommended video, and I stopped about halfway through because it was like I just was mad because he was talking about I think he and a couple others shared the leak footage when it first came out, and because it was a unreleased game that they have copyrighted, they had every right to take it down, and he was like getting mad that they took it down, and then Neil was talking about how he was getting a lot of hate and a lot of anti-Semitic stuff because he's Jewish, and then the dude said, "Oh, you poor little bitch, it's gonna be fine." It's like, dude, like, anti-Semitic things is like some of the worst things you can do to a Jewish person. It's like calling a black person the N-word or like equivalent to that. It's like you don't do that, and just because you're mad because he killed a character you liked doesn't mean he deserves this hate. His name is Just Some Guy, that's what his YouTube account name is.
How telling.
And then like while we're on the topic of Neil Druckmann, it's just like we all have to like remember here, this is Neil Druckmann's story. Like this is him and Haley, I think her name is.
But Zach, they didn't write the game that I goddamn wanted.
Exactly, but like that's the thing. Like,
so I'm allowed to threaten people personally, and especially super wonderful people like Laura Bailey. Like, go watch an episode of Critical Role, even if you don't like D&D or games or whatever. Just like watch it. She's so wonderful.
Or just every like
sweet person.
Think about it. So
all of them, they're all nice, sweet people, and half of that cast has been on Critical Role at some point.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, all those characters are all like Laura Bailey and her husband Travis Willingham. Like they do so much with Troy Baker, and there's a bunch of other minor role like characters there, and that they all do stuff. Then yeah, it's like everything Laura Bailey's in, like she's incredible at. Go ahead.
I was just gonna like add like a quick thing into that. I just love that like people are like going to like Troy Baker, like trying to give him sympathy, and he's just like, "Yo, just fuck off."
Well, that's one too that they brought up on the kind of funny spoiler cast thing. It's like everyone's like, "Oh, I can't believe they do this to it." It's like who cares the most about Joel? Neil Druckmann and Troy Baker. Like they care more about Joel than all of us on this podcast combined, and everyone else, because it's like Neil created that character, and like Troy Baker like put everything he had into that role, and so it's like if Neil Druckmann if Troy Baker who played him was like, "Hey, like I understand, I'm fine with this," like it's like just accept it, move on. But and it's like Laura Bailey's just so good and like everything she's in. I mean, she was incredible as Mary Jane.
It's weird that people were trying to rope Troy Baker into it too.
Yeah, it's just like that's not gonna work.
Just like that's like tweeting. I don't even have a. That's like when people call you for an opinion, and then they just take you being like, "Yeah, I guess so," and they're like, "Yeah, X friend said if you don't agree with me, then you're a moron," or whatever. Like, it's just like, why are you trying to rope? What will you get out of it?
Yeah.
Even if Troy Baker were to be a turd like you people.
Well, I think it's part of it is like,
know what? Yeah, it did suck. Like, what you're not. What's the reward for you?
Because I think what part of it helped is another sequel that. More of a sequel trilogy that people didn't like was with the Disney Star Wars ones, and how like over these last couple of years some of the actors have given some kind of sly comments that have been like, "Oh, I don't think they liked this movie." Like, you're not going to get that out of everyone, and like it's
dorky Star Wars fans bullied Kelly Marie Tran off every
and it's like
social media, and I didn't like Rose either. She was kind of a weird character. I'm not going to go after Kelly.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Yeah, it's like
sweet.
There's issues with the Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Other than I didn't like your character. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an issue with that sequel trilogy, but yeah, bullying all of the female actors off of social media or sending death threats to Ryan Johnson or Neil Druckmann is not gonna change the movie or the game. Like, and on top of that too, if you really don't like what happens with Joel and what happens at the ending, then like, okay, you still have the first game, and yeah, sure, like and you can put it in a vacuum that you don't think about it. And yeah, sure, it's still there, but like you can do that. But actually, that's a good segue to move into the last section of the game. So after you think the game is about done, when you're just chilling on the farm, and then you go to Santa Barbara. And first, before we do kind of talk about the ending, by the time you got to Santa Barbara and it felt like the game was wrapping up, who did you want to die more, Ellie or Abby?
I didn't want either of them to die. I think they had made their point clear at that point in the game, and I was just like, when Ellie jumps back in and is ready to go kill Abby, I was like, please stop. We know like that this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. I still loved the story there on out, but I just couldn't sympathize with Ellie's desire to do that, and I think they explain it well enough where I was okay with everything going on. But
Yeah, I did not want Ellie to go through that. I was
I
like,
think Tommy had a big part in that too.
yeah,
oh, for sure.
Tommy shows up and he's like, "Oh, so you won't go kill her?" And it's like,
I can't kill her, and you win.
no, I have a happy life and a happy wife, and I have Jesse's like cute little baby, and we have our nice farm, and I'm actually very comfortable right now, Tommy. And like that kind of made me not like Tommy a little bit.
I know, yeah, it sucked because Tommy was so ready. Tommy was ready to give up, and I get that, like, yeah, well, if you get shot in the face and like,
He was cool through like 95% of the game, and at that point, I was like, "Oh, cool, we're gonna do some fun farm and mom stuff, cool, whatever." And then maybe we'll get a happy ending or something. And then it's like, no, we're going to California. And then at that point, my expectation was they're both gonna die.
yeah,
It's gonna be like a mutual strike, and they're both gonna die. And I didn't even want to kill Abby at that point, but I was like, we have to. This is
yeah,
what we
yeah. I
have
didn't
to
want
do.
to. I didn't want to kill Abby at that point.
We left
It's
our
funny because, like
comfortable
I
life
said,
in an unnamed location to go all the way to Santa Barbara. So like, I didn't even want to at this point, but it's just like, I just feel like this is what we have to do. Like, we could leave it alone. Like even Abby says, just like, don't let me see you ever again, and that could have been it,
yeah,
and that could have been fine. But no.
It sucked. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like that could have been it. And honestly, I would like this game more than I do now.
If that's where the
I
ending
let
was.
it be that, yeah, because it's like the whole thing with Santa Barbara is just like it just feels like an hour and a half of filler. It's just like we don't know exactly how to end. And this is like I feel like this is probably the only time I've seen Naughty Dog fumble this hard, where it's like, yeah, we're just gonna add this in here because like there's just so much in this last hour and a half where it's like we add like a whole new faction that looks really cool, but we know nothing about them, what their motives are, what they're doing here, or any of that. And it's just like I know we're about to talk about the ending, but like we just spent the last 20 hours of this game doing exactly what you're doing now to have no result, and now we're gonna just do that in a smaller time frame. Again.
yeah. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, and like it's all I was about to bring up too. Like I mentioned earlier, I texted you and you said, like, after Joel died, I can't wait to kill Abby. And then you go to Santa Barbara, and it's just like, I really hope I don't have to kill Abby because it's just like I don't. Yeah, but yeah, the whole Santa Barbara thing, yeah, same thing. It's
I don't
like
want to do it at this point, and she's become like a surrogate mom, or like more like a big
surrogate
to
sister,
Lev,
yeah.
And I like Lev.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, like I just want this,
like a
and
surrogate sister.
and yeah, and like Zach brought up, they introduced a new faction of the game, like, and they just, and yeah, there's some notes you can find that talk
Who are
a little bit about
interesting,
it.
kind of, and
Yeah.
then they're just like, eh.
And when I realized that you were really close to the end was when you get the suppressed SMG, because it's like, oh, this is like when you get the AR in the first game in the last 20 minutes. Yeah, and it just like, yeah, you just
I
you
like
go
that they
through
made
their
that
base
super
and it's
easy
okay,
to
whatever,
do
and then you
no matter what.
yeah. Before we actually talk about the end, one other thing I wanted to ask with the whole Santa Barbara thing, when Abby finds that the former Firefly base, do you think the Fireflies are actually still around, or do you think that was just the Rattlers just like knowing that frequency was there and just fucking with them?
I think they're around, and I would like that to be DLC. I would love if the DLC is Abby and Lev. I don't think anyone else on the planet would want that because everyone seems to hate Abby, but I think they're around.
Well, from what I've heard, I think Ryan has told me before, like, we're not getting DLC for this game. Which also, like, that kind of also makes me mad with knowing that with this whole new faction that we don't know anything about. Because, again, that's just left open-ended. We don't know anything about them. If there is a third game, which, I mean, to be honest with you, given everything that's happened, I don't even know if Naughty Dog would even want to make a third game.
Yeah.
Point. But if there is a third game, like, we're probably never going to go back and touch that again.
For sure. But I guess
it's
now
weird because there's a lot of, there's like a lot of interesting things. Like when you go to their base, like you watch them basically like have the guy he's like close to turning infected, and like you can set him free, and he's there enough to like go kill the people who turn him into a zombie.
yeah, it's
And
just
they
like the
have,
fact
the
that they just
clickers
like
turned up,
have.
and you're like, well, what's your deal? And you kind of have like bike helmets and welding masks and stuff, and you're like, these people are interesting. Why are they getting kind of like shoehorned in here at the
Yeah.
last second?
Yeah, because like them having like the
It's just
infected just like there as pets
And then they
almost.
said they're not doing the DLC, and well, then why did you put these people here?
Exactly. Maybe we'll get lucky and
They're
they'll
open
add.
enough that I could wonder like what their deal is.
Yeah,
'Cause
maybe
they're
they'll.
different, and it's not like they're slightly different. Like they're different enough that I'm like, well, these people are interesting, and I want to know more about them. But you kind of like threw them in this filler arc at the end.
Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll add multiplayer and they can flesh them out in that way.
Plays Rattlers.
But yeah, but now let's get to the ending. So you rescue Abby from being tied up to the pillars, and it seems like she's going to be content with letting her just go. Like Abby's weak. She lost her big gecko muscles, which we never talked about her being jacked. But so she's not
Well,
not
that's what
jacked.
happens when you live in the Seahawks stadium and have access constantly to NFL-ready equipment.
And when
because
you
they have
also
an entire
are
commune.
training to kill Joel for 5 years.
Yeah, that too.
And so she's weaker. She's lost her.
And also, like, what else are you gonna do? Everybody should be jacked, unless your specialty is like here's
Medical.
the skinny WLF person that we're gonna have crawl under stuff, or like you're like med, some kind of like
Yeah.
like Medival or like med units. It's like what the hell would you do if they were giant? Like, if you could not waste ammo, if you were jacked enough that you could like punch an infected to death in a couple punches, I'd much rather do that than have to waste ammo, which is
Exactly.
a precious commodity. Even though in Abby's story, it's much easier and more fun because they're like, yeah, here's all the ammo you need.
Yeah, that was quite nice. I always had that.
And it
Semi-auto.
brought out kind of like the ugly side of people too, when they're like, haha, I guess she's trans because women aren't strong.
Woman can't have muscles,
Women don't lift weights.
but
Women muscly? No. Not,
Yeah,
not in my game.
they were just mad because Abby had bigger muscles than them, and Ellie didn't have the waifu body. So they were woman not look like anime waifu, and 0 out of 10.
People just looked at
None of
Abby
these
and
none
were
of these characters look like Zero Two from Darling in the Franxx. I'm out. I quit.
People just looked at Abby and was like, God, she could body me. Fuck her. Absolutely, she could just like put me through a table and I just immediately die and just like, you know what? I'm scared. Just fuck Abby.
Yeah, but so she lost all those muscles though, and it seems like she's gonna let her go. And then Ellie has a flashback of Joel's bludgeoned face from the golf club, and she's like, "No, I'm gonna kill you right now." And at that point, I was just like, "Stop."
The most blood, by the way, the most blood I've ever seen in a severely emaciated person.
Yeah,
Especially considering you're in what is presumably salt water or water.
and I was just like,
Sorry
just
for the accent.
stop. Like, just let it go. And then
Yeah.
that fight just takes too long. Like, it was like the same happened when he fought that brute on the Seraphite Island, when he like cut the dude's face up. I'm just like, how
That
long
dude
is
has
this
more
fight
blood
gonna
than
go?
any human that's ever
Now-
existed.
Another thing that really bothers me with this whole thing, like during that whole bit, is how Ellie puts a knife to Lev's throat. And I'm just like, everything you learned, and someone else talked about this, which is why I'm like touching on it, because like everything that Ellie knows is what Joel taught her. And I don't think Joel would ever like do that.
Threaten a child?
Yeah, I don't think
At
that,
knife
like,
point?
like
With a knife to his
yeah,
jugular?
so it's like I don't think that would ever really happen. So like I'm like I understand that Ellie's mad. I mean she has every right to be. But like I don't know, that to me was just like a little off-putting, and I was just like,
Yeah. And
I
then
think she was kind of forcing herself. Honestly.
Yeah.
Because
That-
there's
that is
parts where she's reluctant.
because Abby
me
wasn't
wants
gonna
to
fight
reach
her
through the
until
screen.
she did that.
Yeah, like part of me wanted to reach through the screen and be like, you don't have to do this. Like you could have just let her go on her merry way. She was probably gonna die anyway, because I'm pretty sure it implies that she got infected, but she was just trying to get Lev somewhere to be safe. And then like, yeah, when she put the knife up to his throat, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. And then and that fight just lasted too long, I think, too. Like, I mean,
it was like 5 minutes of two people that are presumably on the verge of death, like slashing each other,
and then punching each other and all that, and then
in an ocean that will burn your wounds.
yeah, and then and so it's okay, and then it's like, okay, Abby's gonna die. Ellie's just gonna kill her, and then she has that flashback to Joel on the porch before we see that final scene, and it's just like, and then she just gives up, and I get that, like, that's what she probably should have done early on, but she just gives up, and it's just like, so, okay, like, you lose your fingers, and you just let them go, and you just sit there, and, like, it's, I don't know, like, I get what Naughty Dog's point was with this, of saying, hey, like, and then once you see when she goes back to the farm,
vicious cycle, and there's absolutely no winners.
And you lose everything, because, like, as we find out after she sits there, she goes back to the farm, and Dina and JJ are gone, and she lost 2 fingers, and then she can't play the Pearl Jam song that Joel taught her because she's missing 2 fingers on her on her hand there, and I get what they're going for there, and I see it, but it was just not executed well in my opinion.
That made me mad at the game, and it made me a little mad, but it made
yeah.
I mean, Dina didn't even leave a note, but I'm like, this would have been fine if Tommy didn't come back here. And I get that it's Tommy's brother, and I truly understand that. But Tommy shouldn't have even been alive to hobble in and be a douchebag.
But yeah,
in the first place, because he got shot in the goddamn skull.
But me, like, I don't know how you guys felt about it too, but it just felt so unsatisfying to, like, go through all this and then just be like, revenge is bad, and that's it.
It's like, yeah, okay, cool.
And it's just like that. I mean, like, it is a good lesson to know, and I'm glad that Naughty Dog wanted to take the risk to give that lesson with these characters, given the story, because they could have obviously went like a way more different place with this. But, like, I just feel like for what it is, it's just not told in the best way. And then you have the then you're just unsatisfied with the ending, and you're mad at the story, and you're mad at, now you're just like, if there, like, for me personally, like, if there is a part 3, like, I hope we get one. I hope Naughty Dog just, like, pushes through everything, or maybe they just,
I don't even know what they can do with a part 3.
I don't know what they could do with a part 3, but I mean, but, like, they could probably go to Love and Abby. They could probably go to Dina and Ellie's child. They could probably, I mean, like, also at the end of the game, like, Dina leaves Ellie, and maybe Ellie, like, goes searching for her or whatever. But, like, I honestly don't know what you could do with the story. But if there is a part 3, if they do plan to go that route, because of this, I just don't think I'm going to be as excited for it as I was.
Yeah. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, I it sounds like I'm alone in this, but I loved the ending. I think Santa Barbara and the fight with Abby I think that those things are just kind of a symptom of a problem with the entire game, which is that it's just kind of bloated. It's a bloater, if you will. It just feels like everything just goes a little too long, and I think that's one of the things that hurts the pacing so much. Like, if Abby's section was maybe noticeably shorter than Ellie's, it would have felt a lot better, but I understand that, like, we want to sympathize with her. But yeah, I as far as the actual ending, I felt like it was a beautiful way to have us involved with what Ellie's journey has been like, and like I was kind of mentioning earlier, the guitar is such a fun mini game, but when you get to the end, you're instrumental, you really feel instrumental in Ellie's journey and what she's gone through, whether you wanted to or not. But she's lost a part of herself, and that's in the song, obviously. But it hurts when you try to play that song that you've played a couple times through the game and you can't play it anymore. And I just thought that was such a beautiful way to show us where
revenge is bad.
Well, the revenge is bad, but, like, also that you can't. You get to see that love drove Ellie in a bad way, and she let it drive her in a bad way, and you kind of see what happens to Tommy because he's just completely consumed by revenge because he loved his brother, but it turned him into a monster, really. But yeah, I thought the ending was beautiful. I don't know where Ellie goes after this. I hope there's a Last of Us Part 3. I don't know what they could do with a Part 3, but I didn't know what they could do with a Part 2. So yeah, I really enjoyed
I think they would almost have to do like a spin-off.
Yeah, spinoff, or it would have to be like JJ, like when he is older or something. Yeah, it's just
No, I don't want JJ to go through anything.
there's
He
nothing
doesn't deserve it.
that I can think of with Ellie's side that they can do a full-fledged, AAA length game. But like
Even with Abby's side, like I would just rather like they barely escape, or like at least Lev gets to just like live, and maybe he finds a settlement, and it's just like smooth sailing.
yeah, just like have Abby and Lev find the Fireflies, and have Ellie get
all
back
the
with
side
Dina.
characters, I found myself way more attached to Lev, and like one of the things I don't know if it was just coincidental or if I don't usually have a keen eye for details a lot of the times, but when they use his dead name a few times, I kind of noticed like he and like I said, maybe it's coincidental, but he happened to be like his head would kind of be down.
Yeah,
They didn't really respect his transition, and I think Abby doesn't.
yeah. While I don't, like I said, I think the idea of the ending is good. I just don't like how it's fully executed. I have grown to at least appreciate a little more since I beat it. Because when I first beat it, I was just like, really? That's it? And yeah, as I've thought on it more, I have gone to more, okay, I see what you're going for. Maybe execute a little better in my eyes than I liked it. But like, at the same time, even with, like the last act kind of fumbling a little bit, which like Naughty Dog hasn't really done. Like Jak 3 is the only other game I can really think of that like they kind of stumble for the back half of the game. But I don't know where they can go with part 3 at all. So
I think like Jak 3 probably like my least favorite of that series, because I did mention like that series is probably one of my favorite series of all time. It is in fact one of my favorite series of all time. I'm nowhere near disappointed with the ending of Jak 3 as I was with this. Like, and also it's been a long time since I played that game, but I do remember it.
yeah, I'm saying more just like the last half of the game before you get to that, just is kind of rushed as well. But they also made that game in like 10 months.
That is,
Be happy you didn't play through the Fables.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, like what's funny is like I've talked about it before on this, and then just like when I've talked to some of you guys individually, everything minus the story, I think this game is significantly better than the first, minus the story and the characters. But yeah, and like I enjoy the story. I think that it did a lot of nice things to move it forward, but yeah, with just some of the things with the story, it definitely disappointed me. But like the Naughty Dog still put together one hell of a game, and it's like if I gave The Last of Us 1 a 10 out of 10, this one would still probably be like an 8.5 in my book, maybe almost a 9. Just some of the story stuff, the pacing issues, it brings it down a little bit for me, but it's still an incredible game for me.
For me, I mean, I put up a whole thing on social media where I was like, I gave like spoilers free thoughts because when I finished the game, I really wanted to air them out. And with me, like the whole thing with this, I mean, the story is so much of this game where it's like I can't just like peg it down like a notch or two. Like it has to like take away several points for me. But I do agree with you that everything in this game is significantly better besides the story and the characters. So that being said, like for me, it's like it's like a 7.5. But now like that we've aired this out, I fluctuate between that and an 8. And to be honest, it would probably be more of an 8 now.
Yeah.
That being said, I've gone back and played the first game numerous times, and unfortunately, I don't know if I can see myself doing that with this game. To be honest with you,
It's just so long and drawn out.
Yeah, it's
like
if you really try, you can go and play the first one all the way through in like 10 hours or so. With only grabbing some necessity stuff. Like if you speed run it, you can go even quicker. But if you play it on like medium and you go through quickly, grab your supplies, yeah, it's like a 10-hour game. If you go on this one and you do the same thing, it's gonna be like 20 hours. And like because my total play time with me checking I have a good amount of the collectibles. I was just a hair over 24.
yeah, I think it was at like 23, and I picked up quite a bit of lore. And I really went hunting for that Jak, for the precursor orb thing, and I thankfully found it. Like I was so happy when I found it.
Yeah, I had to go get that after. I'm working on getting because the nice thing is that this game is actually really easy to platinum. It's if you play through it all the way through, and then all you have to do is you just have to get collectibles, and then there's those few small moments like the shooting range, beat Manny, the when you're in the flashback at the museum, put the hat on Joel, and just like a couple little things like that, where it's like super easy to do, and then like the biggest thing you have to do is you have to basically do a whole second playthrough on New Game Plus to get all your upgrades done. But if you do that and hunt for the remaining items at the same time, then you can get a platinum. You don't have to play the game on grounded, which is nice.
Yeah, or on Survivor, like playing like I started playing the first game on Survivor, and I wanted to die. I am usually not someone, and I say this like because like I really want to start playing the Dark Souls games because like I played Bloodborne and I love it. But like that being said, like yeah, this game is tough on the harder difficulty. But another thing I really want to touch on since you mentioned it, I love the museum scene. The museum scene in this game ups a lot, like specifically like the giraffe scene. Like everyone loves that giraffe scene in the first game, and I think that this scene like that makes the giraffe scene look like garbage.
Especially when you get into the actual ship, and like with the tape that Joel gives you, it's just like, oh, this is so nice.
It's incredibly. And, like, that was one of the few times I didn't cry because I was sad. It was just wholesome.
Yeah, and if there was like
which is nice in a game like that.
If there's anything we're gonna flush out, it definitely that, because that was like a 20-minute segment where you can just like walk by the giraffes in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, and like each time you walk by something, like Ellie would tell Joel some sort of fun fact, and it was very much like it. If you talk to like your parents about, oh yeah, do you remember when I did this? Like yeah, like it very much like felt like a real exchange between a father and a daughter, where you have this hyperactive teenage girl. Oh my gosh, I love this thing, and she'll just go on and on and on about it. And yeah, it was so nice. Well, another one too is we briefly.
Joel showed Jen.
Yeah, we briefly touched on a different stuff too.
Like the dumb TV dad shirt.
Exactly. But like the interactions with the characters was not as strong with Ellie and the side characters and Abby and side characters as much as it was with Joel and Ellie in the first game. And that was nice about this moment too. This was before she really had her doubts about what happened with the Firefly. So like this one felt like the same type of interactions we had with the first game, where like they're cracking jokes at each other, they're pushing her in the water, like their relationship was at its best in the game at that point, and it was just really nice to see.
Naughty Dog is so good at making such a tender and happy moment feel so sad, because again, we already know Joel's dead at this point, so it's just like I wish we got so much of that through the game, but I know obviously that Joel dying drives the whole thing.
I mean, Naughty Dog is just good developing.
Right.
Or like despite this game, like again, like this game is a good game. It just like compared to Naughty Dog's catalog, it does fall a little flat. But like with this game being out, like this game, like Naughty Dog is still like one of the same up there with Sucker Punch. Like anything that Sucker Punch like puts out, like say like Ghost of Tsushima comes out next week, I already have that pre-ordered. Like anything that Sucker Punch, Naughty Dog, Remedy Entertainment, even though I was a little late on Control, like I will put out, like I will buy anything that those developers put out.
Yeah, because it's like they've all been good. Like so this might be one of the quote lesser Naughty Dog games. Like yeah, Crash 1 has aged the worst of the original Crash games, but like Crash 1 still is good, and then it just like it got better. And like what is the worst Naughty Dog game? Jack X maybe? Like a spin-off racing game? Like if Jack X or The Last of Us 2 is Naughty Dog's, quote, worst game, that's pretty good. It's like how Toy Story 4, I don't think is as strong as the original 3, but like it's still a good movie.
So like, I won't say that.
What?
I said I cried when Woody left the crew, so like I definitely.
Well, like it's still sad, but I just think the first 3 are nearly perfect. That the fourth one, while really good, I just don't think it was as good. But it's still like if the first 3 are 10 out of 10s, 4 like The Last of Us 2, like 4 is like an 8.5 out of 10. Like, I still really liked 4. It was missing something that the other 3 had. But it's like, if an 8 out of 10 or 8.5 out of 10 is your worst of 4 movies, and 8.5 out of 10 or is the worst out of your couple dozen games, that's pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. So, any other final thoughts you guys have then on The Last of Us 2?
I think you guys are crazy. I loved this game.
I'm excited to play through it again. I'm still deciding if I want to just stop my Last of Us stream and go into 2 and replay it while I go and get everything else, or if I want to finish 1 and then go to 2. But I remember when I first finished the game, I was like, oh, I don't want to go and stream this because at first I still I did not want to touch the game for a bit after I finished it. But then I was like, oh no, let me go get some of the trophies and let me listen to some podcasts and things, of like some of the people I want to hear what their thoughts were on it too. But yeah, I'm excited to play through it again, and maybe a second playthrough, pick it up on stuff. Maybe I'll appreciate the ending a little more. But yeah, it's what's funny is I'm disappointed, but also it's because it's following up a near perfect game that I knew I was gonna probably have some sort of disappointment with this game after it was announced because the expectations were so high.
Yeah, and if I could kind of, it's to make a reference to The Legend of Zelda because it's my favorite game series of all time by a mile. It's kind of like The Last of Us 2 is the Majora's Mask to The Last of Us 1 being Ocarina of Time, where people consider it a top 5 game of all time. And then obviously it's not like Majora's Mask where they're okay, we need another one next year, hop on it, and they're okay, and they have to scramble around. But it's still a very good game. It's something I'll probably maybe I'll visit in 6 months to a year from now, and try to go through for the stuff I missed.
Well, I'm sure we'll all revisit it when the PS5 remaster comes out because that's going to come, and it's going to this game already looks like this is the we kind of know, but this is the prettiest looking game I've ever played.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
I love the film grain filter too.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people probably won't like that. I love it because it's very subtle. The only thing I don't like graphically was yeah, I know it's Seattle, and I know we're in the Pacific Northwest, but give me some occasional sunlight.
yeah, because you had it day one,
not a partly cloudy day. Give me an actual sunny day.
Yeah, you got some sun when you got there.
Part of day 1.
But yeah, and then it was nope, rain.
It's I understand we're in Seattle, whatever, but I know.
Yeah. So, well, I think that will wrap up this discussion then. So before we sign up, why don't you guys go ahead and do some nice shameless social media plugs. So if any listeners who enjoyed this, they want to follow you up, Michael mentioned he is on The Escapist. You can also follow him there. But where can they find you guys all at?
Yeah, like Luke was saying, you can find me over at The Escapist. I'm writing there just about every day. And you can follow me on Twitter at Mike Cripe.
I'm on Twitter at Rumors of Meaning, and then I'm on Instagram at Goddamn That's Edgy.
I love that. I'll never get tired of that. I'm on Twitter at Of Malice, which metal fans, if you know the reference, good for you. And that's Of Malice with a 0. And then I'm on Instagram at Wings of Nightmares, but it's a 1 instead of an I after the Counterpart song.
He has one that's Ryan changes his name every couple years, and I'm always just what's Ryan's new at name again?
It's just who I am as a person. It was a Varios song, and Varios is canceled.
To be fair, I accidentally made Ryan change to his new Twitter handle.
I could have just kept it as a Johnny Cash
He
reference.
could have.
But I think anyone who looks at my tweets will know it's not.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you, Luke, for having us on.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, because I definitely want to have people I knew that played it, and and I was gonna try to get Blake on as well, but he didn't get the game yet. So if Blake's listening, you're a little boy. But yeah, I definitely want to get some people
spoiled for Blake. got spoiled. in
That
the
yeah, I feel so bad for it. Blake got spoiled. Like
So he's like, yeah, I'm not in a rush.
Blake got
Which,
spoiled.
That sucks.
Blake got
it's
spoiled
my
with the
fault.
original spoiler, like the Joel death and the Abby.
As soon as it came out, I'm like, as soon as anything that I think is interesting at all comes out, I go on Twitter and I'm like, what am I muting today?
Yeah,
Mute,
I mean,
mute,
like,
mute. Let's find every iteration of this and mute it because I don't. And then Facebook, I don't even look in the comments because Facebook loves doing that kind of crap.
Oh yeah. But yeah, also like if Blake is listening to this, I'm sorry that I put another spoiler in there for you on accident, trying to share me.
Blake, you should know better.
Yeah, Blake, jeez. but yeah, that'll wrap up this episode. Hopefully, if there is a part 3, and hopefully we can all be a little more agreeing on it. But still a fun game. I'm so excited to go play through it again. But yeah, be sure to check out these guys on social media because they're all good guys. We will see you next time.